Welcome to OAC Vancouver's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We believe that Jesus is needed and relevant for people in Vancouver today. The message of God's love and promise of wholeness was destined to be experienced within a faith community that worships, studies scripture, and prays together. We warmly welcome you to journey with us towards greater connection, purpose, and peace. We'll be sharing our recorded services and conversations with health and wellness experts. Enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to the OAC Vancouver podcast. This is our first of a series to know our church members. It is Black History Month, so we have a special guest today, Kevonnie. Welcome.
Hi, good to be here.
So first hard question, what did you eat for breakfast?
Very, very hard. I drank a blueberry protein smoothie. I pretty much eat two things for breakfast every day, either oatmeal or some sort of protein smoothie.
What profession do you work in?
I work at Vancouver Coastal Health as a business analyst with their clinical systems and transformation project. So it's an IT project. It works with implementing software into a number of hospitals.
Is this something that you've always wanted to do?
No. No, I do want to my passion is things to do with people and culture, leadership development. So I'm in school at the moment. So I'm doing my MBA part-time with hopes of pivoting eventually into the space that I want to be in, which is that leadership development, talent development space.
How did you get into VCH?
I got there from a colleague or someone who I mentored at my previous job. So I used to work at the Better Business Bureau in data quality, and someone who I mentored there knew that at the time I wanted to get into business analysis. Not to get into business analysis, but because from day one, I'm thinking of ways that I can get into the people culture space. And at that time, I was thinking a lot about HR analytics. So I was thinking of looking at business analytics as a way to pivot into that, to deal with things such as workplace analytics, people analytics, and that's still an interest of mine. So I've taken the long way around to what I really want to do. Mm-hmm.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Jamaica. And
were you there for as a child? Did you leave afterwards for school?
Yeah, so I grew up in Jamaica until I was 18, and then I came to Canada, at 18, 19, and I've been here for the past 7 years. I came here to go to UBC.
How was that first experience coming to Canada?
It was different. It was a hard adjusting period for sure for the first couple of years, and in some instances still is. I can imagine that for a lot of immigrants, it's a similar story where there's going to be a party that always longs for home. But the first 2 years in particular were difficult to transition. One, the cultural differences for sure. Two, being Black in Vancouver is a different experience as well because there are not many of us here. So it was very different transitioning from a place like Jamaica where we're 99% of the population, everyone around you is Black. So you have a strong sense of self and consciousness, and then you come here where I'm typically the only Black person in any room or any place that I'm in. And I always say coming to Canada was the first time I knew I was Black, because when you're in a space where you're surrounded by Black people, there isn't that acute awareness that follows you continuously when you're a place where you are the only one.
So when you came to Canada, and then it was, would you fair to say it's like almost like culture shock?
Yeah, for sure. And also because the image of Canada that you get painted when you are not in Canada is that for the most part, it's going to be homogeneous. For the most part, you have the image of the lumberjack, that white bearded man that wears a lot of flannel. So I was shocked at the diversity coming to Vancouver. I did not expect this much diversity. I did not expect this many cultures. So that was a surprise. I wasn't anticipating it. But that's something I like about Vancouver as well, for sure.
So you said the first 2 years were difficult. Obviously, being away from family is difficult. Is there anything in particular that was different to reconcile with moving to another country?
So many things different to reconcile when you move into another country. When you are 18, and this can be the experience of also international students, you're placed in an environment where you don't have your usual support systems. You don't have your family, your friend from back home, placed in university where you have to navigate school and friendships. So it's hard for any student, but then coming to a new culture adds another element of difficulty. So in particular, it's hard to navigate how the nuances within social norms that is someone who would grow up here would get. When you're not from here and you dropped into the space, it's hard to navigate and understand and be articulate in those nuances. There's some things which are hard to spell out, but easy to feel.
Do you feel when you came, was it a sense of acceptance from the community? Like when you came, did you feel, because there's a couple of things, and I think it's kind of hard to decouple. I hear about the Pacific Northwest is generally speaking a little bit reserved on making friendships. The last podcast we talked about something called the Seattle Freeze. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't, but I've heard that they say that people on the East Coast are nice but not polite, and people here are polite but not nice. Along those lines. So it's that over here, folks are very polite. So you would find that nobody will blatantly be mean to you. That's not a commonality. But at the same time, people won't be warm to you.
Mm-hmm. So was the warmness a struggle?
For sure. Coming from a culture back home where it's more, I would say it's more direct. You know people that like you and you know the people that don't like you, and that's fine. Everybody doesn't have to like you. So to me, I feel there's a greater sense of authenticity where you know people's real feelings and emotions up front. Over here, I feel that people are more guarded.
If you were to describe Jamaican culture to someone who's never been to Jamaica, how would you describe it?
Well, from my perspective, as one person, and keeping in mind that I have to recognize my privileges in this as a light-skinned Black person, as a person from upper middle class sort of thing. I have a very particular Jamaican experience. But from where I'm standing, Jamaica is amazing, man. And people are much more warm, I feel. People are much more authentic. People are much more open. People say what they feel more so. You know what's on people's minds. It's a lot more close. And also it's a small country. We're about 3 million people on a small island. So things rub really close. It's smaller. I believe that probably every Jamaican on the island, I'm probably separated by them by 3 connections. It's small. Yeah.
Would you say after so many years, have you adjusted?
Yeah, I've adjusted a lot. It's been, this year will be 8 years. Okay. So I've gotten my sense of Vancouver. I know my way around. I've been fortunate to build up, a strong community here. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of folks and to build a strong network. So that's really good. So and also there's an element where I've been here so long that a part of me has started to forget what home really feels like. It's that thing where you've been here so long, especially that I haven't been able to travel home since 2018, I believe, or 2019. So it's not until you get back home and you come off the plane and you say, oh, yeah, I'm home. And it jumpstarts you into, oh, I'm home. And your accent slightly changes. The way how you navigate slightly changes. Yeah.
I don't know about the ethnic background at UBC, but are there a lot of Black people at UBC?
And I'll talk about people anywhere in Vancouver.
Anywhere? Okay, yeah. Sorry. Okay, this is a strange thing. So like when going to church, we see so much diversity. It's weird because then you go outside of the church and the community is not immediately reflective of that. So because I only moved here like last year, I kind of thought church wasn't like the rest of Vancouver.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so the Black population in Vancouver or in BC, according to the last census, which 2016 is about 2%. So not a lot at all. And in church, that's a good observation. You find more Black people because Adventism is strong in a lot of predominantly Black countries. So for example, Adventism is big in Jamaica. I would say more than half the population is Adventist, or some family friend is Adventist. It's so big. Adventism is huge in Jamaica. Our prime minister is Adventist, our governor general is Adventist. Apart from that, it's big in also Caribbean countries and also African countries. So it's big in West Africa, big in Zimbabwe, big in Tanzania, Uganda. So, and also the South American countries, Brazil. So that's why when you come to any Adventist church in a place like BC, where they're not also Black people, you will find predominantly Black churches. So for example, in Surrey, you have New West, which is a predominantly Jamaican or Caribbean church. You have Surrey Estate, which a lot of Black people are as well. So that's one nice thing about being an Adventist, is that typically when you go to another country, in North America, you will find a Black Adventist church, or in a multicultural Adventist church, you find lots of Black people. Yeah.
So when you went to UBC, given that you came from a majority, then all of a sudden a minority, what was your experience like going to school there?
It was difficult. I'm really thankful for the community that I found from day one. So coming into at UBC, they have this program called Jumpstart for International Students. And it was there where I met my friends who are my friends to this day, 7-8 years later. So all the Black folk, we kind of found each other and we stuck together. And so those girlfriends were people that I lived with, and I still vibe with them till today. So thankfully, that was what kept me going, because it was difficult being in spaces where you're the only one. Apart from that, I'm really happy that the conversation about anti-Black racism has become popular in Vancouver within the past, I would say, year, since the uprisings in the States after George Floyd's murder. I'm really happy that conversations about anti-Black racism have become more common, even though Black people and Black activists, community organizers in Vancouver have been having this conversation for, I would say, at least 5 years, or I don't know the exact number of years, but multiple years before that. But until the uprising that happened in last year, that's when the conversation started to become more normalized. And that's when you started to see institutions like UBC do things such as recognize Black History Month, which they just recently start to recognize Black History Month, very recent. City of Vancouver has been recognizing Black History Month very recently as well, I would say maybe 10 to 12 to 13 years now. And that's when institutions around the place have been recognizing that, okay, Black people are a small population here in Vancouver and BC. However, there are systemic reasons causing the population of Black folks to be so small here in BC. So apart from the systemic reasons, and there are other reasons that has caused that, but it's still a notable population and still a segment of the population that has been marginalized and disproportionately impacted by a number of things and deserve targeted support.
So at UBC, you said you were going through difficulties. Do you mind maybe just an example here and there of what kind of some challenges you're facing?
Challenges at UBC. So when you're the member of a population that is so small, but historically has had a lot of harm done to that population, it's even harder when you're the only one, because you have the feeling that you have to speak up for your race. This is my experience. You have to be the representative. So for example, I was in sociology, and in sociology, particularly they're talking about inequality, systemic issues, things like that. Being the only Black person, all the times you have to speak up, or you feel as if you have to speak up to correct certain problematic narratives, to be the voice that is often not represented, to give a perspective which is often missed. And unfortunately, so that's one thing. And then in our institutions, the subject matter which is presented is still very exclusionary. It feels as if it's incumbent upon you to continuously advocate for the subject matter to be included. So for example, the African Awareness Initiative Club at UBC has been advocating for decades for an African Studies program. And currently they have a minor but not a program. So these are some instances. In addition, when you don't have enough Black professors, so you have the situation where you don't see people looking like you in academia, that's another issue. And these issues are surface value, but tied down to systemic problems represented or that exist within the institutions. Because the reason why you don't have a lot of Black people in these institutions is because when Black people come in, they do face systemic racism, they do face microaggressions, and it makes it difficult for them to exist in these environments, and then they leave. And therefore, when they leave, you don't have diversity of perspectives included into academia, included into any subject matter which is presented, because you don't have Black voices at the table. Do
you feel that when you moved to Canada, you felt constantly a need to represent the voice of the Black community? I'm just curious, is that feel like a burden at times where you constantly have to speak about it, or how do you feel about that? For sure, especially in classroom situations, and especially when you're talking about, that happened when I was doing sociology for sure, because we'll be talking about issues, say maybe slavery comes up, and you are the only Black person. If you, especially if they're talking about it and they're representing it in a way that is problematic. So that experience is one which causes harm to me, and oftentimes I may not always have the energy to then counteract it. Mm-hmm. And there was another incident where, and this happens a number of places in different schools, where sometimes there's one professor I had that said the N-word in class, and she said it in a text. So she was reading an account of something, and I understand reading an account of something still doesn't make it right to say it. And again, being the only Black person in class, it's that's harm caused to me, but not knowing how to speak up. Are there questions you wish people asked more? Or do you wish, if you could wave a magic wand, do you wish that there was like a baseline of knowledge of people? So you couldn't re-explain? For sure. And that's why it's so important to have these trainings in institutions. And a bigger push has been happening this year. A bigger push has been happening since last year.
across the world for companies and organizations to have these trainings, and to have these trainings done by qualified people, preferably with lived experience, that have training in anti-racism, that knows how to have these conversations. And that way you're able to create an inclusive environment, because you're able to either use more inclusive language. So for example, not apart from race, talking about different things, for example, using more gender neutral terms, or respecting people's pronouns, or things like that, which allow people to feel more at home and included in a space. And especially in places like Vancouver, where it's so multicultural, it's more important, in my perspective, to have these sorts of trainings, because it's easier, in my perspective, to cause harm when you have a conglomerate of different types of people from different types of backgrounds with different lived experiences. It's really important for us to have a baseline training to know how to interact with each other. It requires a higher level of social awareness and education. Yeah.
So you say basically one of the things that systematically there should be education across the board, so individuals don't have to constantly explain everything like yourself, right? Like every time there's some people look at you, For
sure. And thankfully, there's this thing called the internet, which is really helpful and happens to have a lot of great resources. So that's a great place to start. But definitely, and everybody's on their own journey. When I first came to Canada, there's a lot of things that I didn't know. And I'm pretty sure, for sure, I've also hurt a lot of people by words I've said, or things I didn't know, or things I was not aware of, for sure. But as you grow and you learn, you know better, so you do better. And having trainings, when organizations can provide the trainings, it jumpstarts the process so that you don't have to go around causing hurt unintentionally. And you're able to have a baseline knowledge, so everyone can know how to interact well and to get along well with each other.
So I think George Floyd was probably the tipping point of one of many items that has occurred in the world. After that happened, I'm just kind of curious, how did this news affect majority Black populations like Jamaica? How did they feel about this, looking this way?
I don't know, that's a good question. I try to keep in touch by watching all the YouTubers, also Jamaican YouTubers. So, but how it felt on the ground, I honestly don't know. What I would say, and my 2 cents on this, and my personal perspective, is that Black people around the world have a lot of shared experiences, but also a lot of differing experiences. So being Black in Canada, being born Black in Canada, or being born Black in America, there are a lot of differences as it relates to being born Black in Jamaica, which would allow you to perceive things differently and have a different awareness. So being Black in Jamaica, from my perspective, everybody's Black, 99% Black. There are other smaller groups, but majority of the population is Black. Coming here, so growing up Black in Jamaica is a very different experience. We all have our own sets of problems, but there's very different experience from being Black in Canada or America, where you're continually faced with racism and microaggressions and systematic racism to your face every day. So that's a very different experience that I'm not sure that Black people in Jamaica or in other places in the diaspora really understand until you come here and live here for some years. That's what I would say. But as it relates to what's the consciousness back home, I'm not too sure. I haven't been home since in a little while.
Right. Yeah. Going back to Jamaica, did you grow up in the faith? Or how did you get introduced?
I'm probably 4th generation Adventist. So, yes, born and bred. for want of a better word.
How is the church experience in Jamaica different than North America?
Very different, I would say. And I would say, I don't know if it's the same. You said that you've been here in Vancouver for a year. Where were you before?
Southern California?
Oh, okay, so still West Coast.
Yeah, so West Coast.
Yeah, so in my perspective, West Coast liberal, in my perspective, West Coast Adventism is more laid back, more casual. We show up to church in our jeans and a nice button-down shirt, or church services end at 11 or 12, and at 12:30, and we have picnics and we go home. It's quite chill. To me, that's West Coast Adventism. East Coast Adventism is more conservative. People still dress up, still longer church services. We still do the whole ordeal. And then in my perspective for Jamaica, it's also much like East Coast conservatives. So dress to the nines, you're in your Sabbath's best, long church service. We're there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So sometimes you're at church for 9, then you have your Sabbath school and divine worship, and then you have your lunch, eat lunch at church, which is what I like, or you go over to somebody else's house and you eat, and then you come back for Bible class, and then you have your AOS, and then you stay at church and play games till 9:30. And then you hang out with your friends afterwards, and you probably sometimes you get home at 11. Church is a whole day already, and then you were at church the night before for choir practice, and then you're at church Sunday for Pathfinders. Mm-hmm.
Do you miss that type of long Sabbath day, which is common in?
No, I don't. What I do miss is the strong sense of community. I miss, because it could be a particular experience for me, because my dad's a pastor, my brother's a pastor, so 2 pastors in the family. So in Jamaica, my life was church. Life was school and church. So, but I would say, from what I've observed, for a lot of people, church was a core part of your community. So a lot of your friends came from church. So you hang out, and not because we are in church, so therefore we have to be friends, and there is targeted ways to facilitate that community, but more so just because we're friends. So it could also be because it's more communal, a community, it's a small island, it's smaller. So a lot of times the people you go to church with could also be the people that you go to school with, people that live close in your community. So there's that more inbred sense of continuity between your church life, your home life, and other areas of your life. So I do miss that strong sense of community, but we kind of OD'd on the long days at church, in my perspective. I did not need to be at church for so long, because in my perspective, the day of rest is missed sometimes, because after a long day of school, after a long week of school and work, then you're at church, you're pulling another marathon at church on Saturdays, and then you get home Saturday night late because you're hanging out with people, and then Sundays all systems go for preparing for school and work again. It was a lot.
It's funny you say that, because I come from kind of a similar type of church experience.
Oh, really? In Southern California? What?
Yeah, there's a interesting set of diversity. So it was a Vietnamese American church, but we started at 10:30, and then I would leave at 6, which would be early, mind you. And other people would stay till 9, because same thing, they would have potluck, and then they would have Bible study, then they would do AY. And I was like, I'm getting tired, I'm going home.
Yeah, I would say, in my perspective, ethnic churches are still, because a lot of the times ethnic churches still tend to be quite traditional. So still hold to those Bible study, AY, Sabbath school, or that sort of thing. Because the church that I went to in the New Life, the Adventist church, predominantly Jamaican, they were also like that. So the same process of we're in this for the long run. And then it was nice when you have socials afterwards sometimes. It's a lot, but I believe what you put in is what you get out. So it could be precisely because of those grueling long days why the community was so strong.
You said your dad was a pastor, and who else was a
My
pastor?
dad is a pastor and my brother is a pastor as well.
Do you ever feel a sense of pressure coming from a pastoral family?
So when I hear, not so much because I could choose to disclose it if I wish.
Sure.
Hear not so much because, first of all, I do find that on the West Coast, people are, they say West Coast liberal, West Coast chill, West Coast. People are more relaxed overall. It's more laid back. So I find, especially in more multicultural churches, people, apart from the fact I can disclose if I choose, people are more, it feels like it's a reserved judgment. People tend to be more, oh, you do you. Whatever you want to do, sis, you do you. In my perspective, in ethnic churches and on the West Coast, on the East Coast, and more conservative churches, it could be because you have those close-knit communities. People are much more open to keeping you in check. And people are much more open to telling you what's on their mind and what they think you should and should not be doing. So in those communities, yes, I do feel more pressure because there's a distinct understanding of what it means to be a pastor's child. And not only that, what it means to be a Jamaican pastor's child. So there's a distinct understanding of what you should and should not be doing. So in those communities, yes, there can be a sense of pressure for sure.
Because obviously everybody in the church is held to a higher standard, more or less, because you're in church. But did you feel that other people were trying to convey even more pressure on you?
In retrospect, I say that yes, there was a lot of pressure I felt. But when you're in it, when you're a young person in it, formative years, 10, 15, 16, whatever, for the larger part, in my head, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I also held myself to that high standard. So in my head, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I was raised to do. This is who I am. So it didn't feel pressure because in my head, pressure is when there's some incongruence. And you feel pressure because you're going against some grain or you're not behaving, you're not in line. But I was very much in line. I was a to some extent to them, poster child, perfect grades, never got into trouble, barely gave my parents any trouble, poster child. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because when I grew up with the two pastors' kids, and I knew them since they were like 5 until they're growing up. And I felt they both responded to be a pastor's kid very differently. One of them was a little bit rebellious, but funny enough, kind of because he was rebellious, he turned out to be in straight and arrow later, and the other one was pretty straight and arrow and turned out to be rebellious later. And it was a weird. I
know that makes sense. Yeah, I do feel that way for sure. I get that. The funny thing is, I'm happy that I had the opportunity to leave Jamaica when I did when I was 18. I'm happy I had the opportunity to live on my own and to have certain experiences because I got to get a sense of myself that was outside of people's expectations of me. So I was able to form more realistic expectations of myself. I was able to chill a lot more. So I believe I was perhaps, it's interesting. I don't know if I would ever have been rebellious in Jamaica because, again, I also valued that high esteem put on me. So I valued being the poster child. I liked being that person that people look up to. But coming here, I was given the space to see how those perfectionist tendencies are detrimental to me. And I could see how aiming to be perfect is going to limit me from a lot of valuable life experiences. So I was able to decide what I want to be and to try on a version of myself that fits.
So I'm not sure what it's like in Jamaica, but at least in North America or where I grew up, a lot of people left the church. Like my friends growing up when I was young, and it's very few of us in the 20s, 30s. Is it the same in Jamaica, or does everyone pretty much stay in the church regardless?
I would say a lot of people leave too. That's my perspective. Yeah, I believe that's a global phenomenon where, and there was that study, that happened, that OAC was privy to. There was a study that happened amongst young people in Adventism, and there's a lot of migration, and they said, don't quote me on this, but could be early 20s, between that late teens to 30s sort of thing. And then maybe people come back when they have kids. Say, right. Lord, we need you now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why, I don't know, it's a kind of a tough question, but why do you think you're still in the church now?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me why do people leave the church.
No, because
I thought you wanted to say, why, Kevonnie? Speak for all the population that left. Why did they leave? Why am I still in the church? Personally, there are two aspects. One, it's that core, it's so ingrained in me. I'm fourth generation Adventist. My family is very church. So apart from the spiritual aspect, practically and community-wise, church is a big part of my identity as a person. So it's a big part of my form. And that's one. Two, I like church. I happen to like it. I like community. I like being attached to faith. I like what the church does in the community. I think it's valuable. I do believe that being in church is valuable to people's experiences and adds a lot, if done properly, adds a lot to their human experience, because we need it to thrive. Personally, I believe that human needs need faith. You need a power higher than yourself. I bought wall decor on Amazon. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens, because this year I started my master's, and child, I need a power higher than myself to juggle everything. And people need that. I personally believe that people need God, and people need to experience God in communities, and people need faith to keep them going through life. And if done right, the community needs church as well to add that texture, to give back, to add support, to provide a place for people to mourn, to experience joy, to experience community. People need that. So I believe it's a valuable experience.
It's interesting because when you talk about church as and what's nice is like it's a seamless, natural flow that ebbs through you. It's like, so I don't know if you swim or...
No, I don't swim.
So the only reason I think about this is, so yeah, our pool's open, but when you swim, the key to being a good swimmer is to glide through the water and not try to provide a lot of resistance through it. So your technique, like kind of like how you watch like a fish or a dolphin go through the water, there's no resistance and they just glide through it. It's natural state of them. And then when you don't try to be so tense, it just flows. And it seems like church and faith kind of just, is it fair to say like when you're young, it just kind of just flows through you? It's never been like a big resistance. It's just kind of natural state of affairs.
Yeah, because I grew up in a pastor's family. So it's how I've always known life. I haven't known life any other way. And apart from that, they say that Jamaica is a country with one of the most churches and bars per square mile. So I guess people need the spirit in some way or another. But Jamaica is a very church country, so predominantly Christian as well. So church to me is a way of life. I recognize that that's not the same for a lot of people. I know that people have different experiences growing up, so they maybe could not relate to why church is such a natural thing to me. And that's valid. Mm-hmm. But I like church. Church is cool. I think it's nice. I think when church is done right, it's good. A lot of people experience a lot of hurt and harm done in churches, for sure. So I can understand why some people leave, because unfortunately the church is an institution made up of humans, and we don't do it well all the time. And people experience a lot of hurt and a lot of harm, real hurt and real harm in churches, for sure. And that's why some people leave. Some people leave because maybe what they're seeing as fact through science or whatever is not reconciling with what's being taught. Some people leave because maybe they feel the discussions are too rudimentary and it's not meeting the thirst for knowledge that they're needing, other reasons. But there's a lot of good things in church as well, for sure.
So a lot of things that you mentioned, and just for a prefix for those listening to this podcast perhaps years later, we're still in a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And obviously the pandemic has changed. I mean, what I miss so much about church is like, I miss potluck a lot, because that's when I would meet random people that I would probably never get to meet, like in my normal day-to-day. And
I remember meeting you at potluck. Yeah. And I remember at that time I had to start to my MBA. And I remember you saying, "Why are you doing an MBA?" I remember that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it was like Christmas.
Potluck. Yeah. But here I am doing an MBA. Yeah, so
how do you feel that COVID has affected your day-to-day and kind of your faith journey? Because I think all of us are trying to adapt to this.
How it has impacted my day-to-day. Pros and cons, for sure. I have to say that I'm privileged because I haven't been impacted economically. So I'm thankful that I still have my job and still able to work from home. It's more the social aspect. So I live alone in a studio. So I do miss physical contact. I do miss hugging people. I do miss being around people I know, not just random people I'm seeing on the street. So I miss that. In some ways, it has opened up opportunities for me. So I do like the fact that I'm studying, but it's online. I can't imagine I would have missed the in-person experience too, for sure. But online does make it more convenient. I don't have to trek to UBC to study or things like that. Another opportunity has opened up is church offerings online. So there's been an expansion of all the offerings. Different churches and churches have stepped up their game. OAC has a podcast now. I'm not sure if we had that before COVID, but there's a lot of offerings that people, when they pivoted digital, and they're doing it well. For example, now I tune in a lot to my church back home. So there are different conferences back home, I believe 5. And there's one called East Jamaica Conference, and they have their virtual church offerings. But it's so much. They have church offerings, Sunday night meeting, whole day Saturday, Wednesday night meeting, Friday night, and then Saturday. Well, yeah. So multiple days of the week it's basically a 24-hour TV show on YouTube. So I think that's really, really, really cool. And I like to tune in because I'm able to see childhood friends, childhood faces, people I know. So I know a lot of people from all the different conferences because they move pastors around a lot. So many pastor friends I know, or so many people say, "Oh, this guy, that guy." I get to see them from a distance and keep up with them. That's what I like. So opportunities, pros and cons.
What's the first thing you're going to enjoy when church reopens?
I will enjoy seeing people. That's the main thing. I don't know. I say seeing people because I don't know if we're going to be able to have potlucks for a while. I don't know. I don't imagine that when COVID ends, that everything, I believe things will still be monitored. So I don't know if we're able to bring food or hug even or things like that. So I have to be content with seeing people at distant proximities.
Yeah. Well, anyways, do want to thank you for your time to talk about this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you. You're a really good host.
Thank you for listening to OAC Vancouver's podcast. Learn more at oacvancouver.ca. If you're in Vancouver, join us for worship Saturdays at 11 a.m. at 5350 Bailey Street. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. God bless you and have a wonderful day.